I am Yamato Cannon, and this is Muffin, and you're watching Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and this one is going to be with Febiven, obviously formerly of, a million teams to talk about somewhere in this one, FNATIC. He likes to pretend he didn't join H2k again, but I remember that period. It happened. He's in Clutch Gaming briefly. Obviously, those were his fucking money tree years where he was just picking $100 bills outside in America and occasionally playing in LCS. And then he came back to Europe. He was on Misfits, obviously, until recently. And then who knows for the future? Maybe at the end of the interview, we'll ask about that. So, Febiven, I'm going to start classic Thorin style with a really old school moment in your career and one that actually isn't necessarily the best period, which is when you were playing in what at the time was called the challenger scene. It's basically like, there wasn't really like national leagues back then, but that was like the level below ULCS. It was when you were playing with Cloud9 Europe and H2k before you got into LEC. And if you remember, what people always used to say was, like, you were considered a talent. Like, people already thought you were a good mid laner, but everyone said, because you didn't qualify, he's a choker. This guy can't play under pressure. Do you remember this period? Was there any truth to it?
Choker? No. I think it was people thought that, people, had the impression of me that I was like a really big tilter. So I guess you could see that as choking as well. Yeah. But I don't
As in you just got angry if you were losing or something?
Yeah.
Or just affected your player?
Yeah, just a bunch of, I guess, negative emotions, which I didn't understand, right? So,
okay.
But I wouldn't say I ever choked. It's not like I don't know what is choking in a real game, but like, for me, choking is like getting a blackout or something. Or like,
I know what you mean. Yeah, put it this way, the distinction is usually this. I agree, people tend to blur them all together. Like, to me, choking is more like the pressure of the moment gets to you, and like you just don't know what to do. Like, you're stuck, you're paralyzed. Oh fuck, what do I do? And you can't play the game basically. So if instead it was just that, like, you just went on tilt easily if you thought you were losing or you should beat someone. Like, has that continued throughout your career? Have you ever had other issues with that?
Oh yeah, of course. This is something that when I was a child, right? I guess most childs. I guess just personally, like, growing up, you don't really understand like what is going through your brain, right?
Sure.
So it's like, okay, I'm just playing this video game, and then I'm supposed to win because if I win, I get points, and if I lose, then I will lose points. So if I lose, I will go back in the ladder, and if I win, I will go higher, right? So then you just get mad when you lose, and you don't even know why. I guess because you just don't. I just don't like losing, and this is something that I think every pro goes through, and I think it depends on your personality, like how you are as a person and how much you're like willing to understand, I guess, your emotions and go to your lowest lows and also go to your highest highs. So this took, still, like, I'm still reflecting a lot, and it's for sure like the biggest thing. Like, outside of playing well, I think this is the biggest thing that I had to focus on, and still I am, because it's my biggest weakness, but also my biggest strength.
Right, obviously, at this time you were way younger. Like, and it's not like this was like 5 years. We're talking about like a year, basically, of playing this challenger scene. It's just that you had these opportunities where, like I say, you were in some of the best teams in the challenger scene. So people expected these teams should qualify to EULCS. But this was actually the time period where, if people don't know, a lot of times the teams that just at the bottom of EULCS would just keep their spot because they had like pros that had years of experience. They only had to play on LAN. Then you had to play in a best of 5. Like, was this a frustrating period for yourself? Like, did you wonder, like, am I just not going to get into LCS?
No, I it's not like, I don't know, actually. Like, I guess I always had the confidence because back in the days when I used to play a lot of Call of Duty, I felt I was really, really good. So I had never had any issues with like confidence or believing that I can be the best in whatever game I play. So that never never was a doubt for me in my mind. And it was more about just time, right? Like I think I made it pretty fast, I would say. Like first challenger team, then I was in H2k. I don't know, I was just enjoying it so much I didn't really think about failing. I was just like going along with like having fun and doing what I love, and then just eventually it happens, right?
Okay. Because if people have ever heard you, like particularly, and even though I know some of this is in fun, whenever you've been on Dom stream and you were like letting loose a little bit, giving your opinions about the game, like, first of all, I will say for fans who don't know, there's a lot of pros would talk like that. They just don't dare do it publicly, or they're worried about their image, etc. You know. But one thing I found interesting is, I wonder maybe it is your background in different games like Call of Duty, games that, by the way, you can sort of express raw skill a lot more in these games. Obviously, they're like precision-based shooters, etc. Right? I've noticed you have a mentality that reminds me a little bit of Mithy, actually. Where what's interesting about Mithy is he wouldn't ever say he was the best. So on the one hand, if you only heard that part, you think, oh, he's really humble. But then if you asked him about any other player who wasn't basically like the best Korean, he'd be like, yeah, they're absolute shit though. Like I'm better than them. Like his logic was like he just didn't basically he thought that everyone else was a bit overrated in terms of like skill and ability in the game, and like that there was so much more you could do in League. You seem to be a bit like that. Like whenever I hear you, first of all, if I ever hear you talk about any role except mid lane, you make them all sound like noobs who just aren't playing real League of Legends, and you know they should just get out the way of the mid laner. Like, well, give me some thoughts on this. Like, where does this Febiven attitude come from?
I mean, I do have the mindset where I don't believe that there's a best. Like, obviously, people like to believe that someone is the best, right? Let's say Faker. He was probably the best, right, for like a really long time.
Yeah.
But I think I don't think I have been considered maybe the best mid in Europe for a year, or maybe with the FNATIC
Some
year,
people
right?
might have said in FNATIC in Season 5, maybe. I mean, I wouldn't, but then that's just me, mate. You know, don't worry.
But at the time, I don't think I was the best, even though many people might have thought so, or that I was, I don't know, playing really good at Worlds or something. But I just think if you get to the point where you feel like you're the best, or you feel like that someone else is the best. Let's say I say right now I think Caps is the best, which a lot of people
Yeah, sure.
say, and it makes sense, right? He has won the most. Same for Perks. Those guys are really fucking good, and they should be very respected, right? But once you really believe and you tell yourself, these guys are the best, then this is gonna hurt. At least it hurts me, because I don't believe there's the best, especially in a game like this where everyone is so young and everyone has so much to improve on. It's only like a matter of time before another guy gets smarter, grinds smarter, just gets to work with people that just make him a lot better, and some people might get into situations which will drag them down. Like, you never know, right, what can change in 1 year. It's like I was playing in FNATIC for 1 year and we won everything. 18-0, not losing a single fucking game, smashing everything. Meanwhile, I didn't even think I was that good. I was just like riding along, right?
Okay.
But yeah, I guess that's... Yeah, I just don't think there's the best. Like, there is unlimited cap to this game when it constantly changes, right? And it's I think you just shouldn't limit yourself by saying the best, because it's just, I don't know, it doesn't mean much to me, like the best.
If people don't remember, there was also an interview you did. I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but just to keep it on topic, where when you were coming into the EULCS, when you'd never yet played any EULCS, you did an interview with, I can't remember which site it was. I'm going to say .esports, maybe one of the like sites back then that was doing interviews. And basically, in this interview, you said some line that was like, "In a year from now, I'll be considered as good as Expeke, Froggen," and these were obviously the best mid laners at the time and like the legends of the region. And like as we were just talking about here, like to be fair, like people in EU in terms of like those awards did consider you the best within a year actually. So like you say you don't ever think you were the best. There was never a period in time you ever thought like I'm the best Western mid laner no matter what the results are or what team you never just felt like you were on top of the scene in terms of individual play?
I think obviously my ego loved hearing this when I said this to myself. But then in reality, it was something different because I knew kind of how good I was and how much still I had to grow and how good I was compared to others. Which, yeah, at that point I was more comparing myself to other people and trying to be better than them instead of just focusing on me and not really comparing player to player because you can't really do that, right?
Yes.
Like you can't compare like Doinby to Fake, or you can't compare Rookie to Caps, or it's like when you realize that it's just so pointless to compare and it doesn't actually matter. Like if, for example, Nuke Duck was better than me in Season 5, I think he was, or Bjergsen, or even like all the Korean mids, right? The Chinese mids, but yeah, I mean, it took some time to obviously realize what thoughts I should be having that actually, like identifying the thoughts that like hurt my growth,
Sure.
but also like enable my growth. That makes sense.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll get to some of the team stuff in a minute, but while this is an interesting topic, I'll keep it going. So what I want to ask along these lines is this, right? There's a great saying that I've heard basically about young people. And now that I'm older, mate, I can look back and realize it was true. I don't have to have that like defensive ego that young people have where they don't ever want to be told they're wrong, which is that the problem is this. It's that when you're young, you just don't know what you don't know, as in you don't even know what it's possible to know. So as a result, it's really easy when you're young to think that you're hot shit because in some area, basically the limited area you do know, you're just going to think, well, I'm better than these guys, or I'm good. And so one thing I've noticed, it's like a little kick I've been on recently with some of my videos, is I think we have to have a new distinction in the game. And it's not just the term rookie and veteran and those like very vague terms. But like I call it this. I call it players who know how to win the game and players who are just really good at their role in League of Legends. And in the latter category, people who are good at their roles, there's tons of young people like that. I can go right now on a US Challenger and I can find tons of players who are monsters. They have 3 or 4 accounts that can get high up. They can play all the champions that are meta. Like if they play a solo queue game, they can beat the best players in LEC. But the difference is, I put them in an LEC game. Some of them wouldn't even know what the fuck to do. Like they wouldn't know what to do at this point in the game, or with a bad jungler, or with a support player that can only roam at certain times. Like in my opinion, with some of the players you mentioned before, Perks is an obvious example. Mithy's a great one. Like these are players where they don't even have to be at their individual peak, and they might be like the most valuable player on the team because their mind for like what is possible in the game and how to play the game is way above like the skill that they necessarily need to do in the game. So as someone, you seem like a pretty reflective pro. Like over the years, you've obviously like put in time thinking about yourself, self-improvement type stuff, trying to figure out your own mentality. When you look back on early Febiven, has there been a lot of growth since then? Did you have to go through a lot from when your skills were obviously very good at the beginning?
Jesus, man. Like, actually, I like thinking back like this because I actually barely do this, and this is actually what I love about interviews because those questions are just like make you. I don't know. It's just funny to look back and I guess kind of see like how I was before compared to now. But I can tell you that I don't know, dude. Like if I would describe it, I guess I was just lost. Like maybe lost is not the right word, but like
Clueless.
just like I don't know, dude. I was just like playing, right? Just playing and just enjoying, just having fun, and just not having any worries, and just not thinking about anything. Just fucking like do whatever I want to do, and just not know the consequences, not knowing how to deal with them, not understanding a team setting,
Sure.
not understanding what other people want from their life, not being considerate. Just That mostly.
Just sounds like a young person. Yeah, it seems reasonable. Back then, though, when you made that statement about expect A-Froggen, like, did you get that concept back then? Like, could you look at those players and realise, like, they're on some other level? Or did you just think, like, look, I play these champions in the same game and I'm just better than them?
I think the reason why I said that is because I was very confident, as I said earlier, in my individual skill. And I think that obviously when you play solo queue against them and you beat them, then you're like, wow, I'm really good.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I should be playing LEC, and like why is
Okay.
this I'm like 17 years old, why is this guy 5 years younger, like older than me, and like playing? But then reality was they were still smashing me most of the times. I remember scrimming against Froggen when the Gragas was meta back in the days, and he was so good. Same for X-Pac when he was playing like Twisted Fate and stuff. These guys, I could tell they were like really good and smart, and like they had so much more about their lane, and I was more about like all I was trying to do was just kill them, right?
Of course, trying to outplay them.
I was
Yeah.
trying to kill them because I
It was an
knew
ego
that
move, right?
if I would get killed, I would get mad. So I thought that if I
Right.
killed them, that they would get mad, and then I could win the game like that, right? But that was just my playstyle, and that was kind of the meta, right? Because it was a lot of assassins. But
Yes.
yeah.
Right, in these early teams, I actually notice, obviously back then these weren't famous names, which is why no one knows this, but like, dude, you had some fucking insane junglers in Challenger. Like, you had that guy Koo, who sadly now has passed on, but he actually was considered like a mad talent. You had Santorin before anyone knew who he was. You had Trashy, who now is known as Cold. Again, now as a joke, I'll say you also had Lulex, but you know, nothing's perfect.
I love that.
Listen,
that.
I'm sure you do. He's a great guy, but you know what? He gets the Thorin flame. But you had some pretty fucking good junglers back then. Like, were these guys actually good back in the day when they were challengers, though? Or was it later they got good? What were they like?
I think they were all good in their own way. I think they were all very motivated, very hungry. They were, I wouldn't say very talented, but they grinded a lot. They loved the game, and I could see that they were really trying. So, yeah.
When you got this offer to go to FNATIC, where you qualified with H2k, but then at the time, like, if people don't know, H2k wasn't a massive gaming organisation. Like, they were just like a mid-tier one in Europe. So it's understandable why if you get the offer to go to FNATIC, you would do that. In fact, I've even told this story before, so we won't go too deep into it, because I know it sounds mental, but it is real. That I, in theory, could have been your coach for this split, right? But actually, I'll tell you straight up, mate, when I heard that they were like, oh, we're getting this, like, Korean fucking sob, and then that guy who was shitting LCK for the jungler, and then, like, Febiven, I was like, I'm out. Peace. See, listen, you guys have a great time with that. Like, you know, try and find someone else. And I actually even told FNATIC, like, I'd just put an ad online and just say, is there anyone out there good? And that's actually how they got Deilor, by the way. But the point I'm making here is, like, I know now everyone will claim that, like, oh, that FNATIC team was so talented and good. But, like, dude, when that team was being built, those were, you guys, you were, like, vaguely known. Obviously, YellOwStaR stayed. Steelback was nobody. Like, at the time, that lineup was not supposed to be super good. So, like, when you came into this, did you actually know this was going to be a good team? What was it like getting the offer to FNATIC? I mean, it's one thing to join FNATIC, right? If I'm joining, and, you know, they've still got sOAZ and Rekkles and all these, that's different. If I'm joining, it's just fresh players and one old player. That could be intimidating. You might not know if it's going to work. What was it like?
I mean, in terms of joining the team, obviously, when they messaged me, I was, like, really excited. And I couldn't, like, believe it. And I was like, I couldn't sleep at night. And obviously because it's FNATIC, right? And they are like the team that I guess everyone wants to play for. I should want to play for, because they're a team that's been at the top for very long, and they have like a mentality that like they really invest into winning, and they show that with what they're building, and maybe some years more than others, but they always try to I know how Patrick thinks. I know he's like a competitive guy, and these are people that I can relate to, you know. And Yeah, I mean, it's just really exciting, and just about the roster. I mean, I didn't know anything, but I didn't care. Like, I knew how good I was, and I was just focusing on me. And just, I don't know, this was just very exciting to also play with another team, right? Like, so it's just the beginning and getting to know other people, 2 Koreans. I don't know, just like, I guess kind of getting out of my comfort zone, which I didn't really identify at the time, but if I look back on it now, I think it was like the right move. So there was like no hesitation or anything. Just felt like the play.
If one thing people always forget about that story of that team is because the summer split was the perfect one where you went 18-0 and then won the split, right? People forget that the whole reason why that was epic is because the spring, when you guys didn't have Rekkles and it was still Steelback, was the one where it wasn't until the playoffs that you became the best team. And even then it was super close to win over Unicorns of Love. And at the time, remember, SK was going into the playoffs as in theory the best team and Febiven was the MVP and all that jazz. So like at the time, no one knew yet how good this team was. You were a top team, but so was like, for example, your X team, H2k was very good. There was a bunch of good teams back then, right? In the first split with this team, how would you describe like the level of the team? Like, for example, were you like dominating scrims? Were you actually the best team the whole time, in your opinion?
In spring split?
Yeah.
Wait, this was Origin as well, right?
Origin was in summer. They were still in Challenger in spring.
What happened in spring?
Spring was the one where I think you were like maybe something like third going into playoffs, and then in playoffs you beat Unicorns of Love in 5 games in the final.
I mean, yeah, I mean, this... I will have to look up the stats, but I don't think we were like that insane or anything. I mean, we were like... I think we had our style, like we figured out our style like really fast, and everyone was really aggressive, and we just had like the right mix. Obviously scrims are scrims, right? Like you're never gonna win every scrim, because scrims are just so different than real matches. But I mean, I would say we were just, I think like Deilor did a really good job bringing us together, and we had YellOwStaR, who was like shot calling everything, which basically means that the rest didn't have to say much. Like it was like, I have 2 Koreans on top who are just talking fucking Korean the whole game, which is perfectly fine. And then I'm just playing my own game, which it's my strength. And then Steelback is just chilling with YellOwStaR, while meanwhile YellOwStaR is like shot calling the whole game from beginning to end. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just, and obviously he was like really like such a good figure for us because he was like way older than everybody and like had so much experience, so it was pretty nice.
On that note, though, on the YellOwStaR angle, that's one thing I've actually tried to make people aware of on a lot of my shows, is because the problem is, because the last high-profile moment in his career was when he joined TSM, and he got flamed by a bunch of the TSM members, where they were like, oh, he didn't even do anything, like, he wasn't even a shot caller or anything. Like, it's made people think that, like, it was like Reignover or something that was like the genius of this FNATIC team, or, you know, Deilor just did it all as a coach. But, like, all I'll tell people is, I've actually heard some of the comms, and I had spies within these teams who told me what people are like, and I basically heard exactly what you just said, Febiven. I heard that in this FNATIC team, it was like YellOwStaR just had like full control, basically. Like everyone just listened to him, and as you say, it's like it's like he had no fucking fog of war on the map. He was just reading the whole thing. Like, right now we're going to rotate to here. Like, watch out in this scenario. Like, I heard it was insane.
It was really insane. Looking back at it, it was really insane. And now I understand why sometimes he got so frustrated. But in the moment, I got frustrated because he got frustrated. But shot calling every fucking game from scrims to real matches in high pressure situations, if things go wrong, shit really goes wrong because you're like responsible, right?
Sure.
And then you have to, sometimes when he would make something would go wrong, he would always take other responsibility, and sometimes he wouldn't be able to like handle it. But now I can understand why he would why he got so frustrated sometimes. But he also stayed. Like most of the time he was really stable. Like he knew exactly what he wanted, what he needed, and it was very nice.
if you were, since you were talking earlier about like, like a young person's ego and stuff, if you win it wasn't called LEC, but we'll just keep calling it that because it's too annoying to keep changing the name. So when you won the LEC, the first split you came in, did your ego pop off? Did you think like, oh, I always knew I was this shit. Well, I'm here now. Like, did you really think that when you won already and you were going straight to MSI?
No way. No, totally not. I was not so full of myself. I was not full of myself at all. I was very shy and yeah, I guess I was confident, but I'm not like outspokenly confident. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
deep in myself, I am, but I never knew how to kind of. Yeah, I never really spoke it out to the world.
When you went to MSI, right? I know every pleb wants me to ask you that like boring ass question, like, "Oh my god, you solo killed Faker." But here's the thing, right, Febiven? I might be wrong with my guess here, but I feel like we've got to sort of like burst the bubble of that hype, because the problem is this, mate. There's two factors. One, everyone forgets. I'm pretty sure you fucking lost the game where you solo killed Faker twice, and then secondly. Listen, that series sounds great when I say it went to 5 games. That 5th game was one of the most fucking brutal stomps of a Korean team on any Western team I've ever seen. That was the one where they just like fucking triple buffed your jungler and like fucking just dominate. Like from the beginning of the game till the end, they just put on like a masterclass. So give me some thoughts on this series. Because listen, on the one hand, at the time, nobody was beating the Korean teams in series. So to even go to game 5 was like epic at the time. And at the time, yeah, nobody outplayed Faker. That almost never happened. So that was fucking hype. But what was it like from your perspective? What was this series like? It must have been like in a massive jump up in level.
I mean, now we're going back. I mean, this is a really long time ago, right? Like, obviously, I didn't expect to win or anything. I just, I think when we were scrimming them, they were always beating us. So we were having like very hard time. But yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone, I mean, at least I didn't really think. I mean, we had a chance, but it was like very low. But I guess I just tried my best, and obviously, like, I don't really remember the games exactly, but I think the games were really hype. And it was like afterwards, everyone was like really fucking sad that we lost, and it was so close, and like everyone was like focusing on their own stuff, and like if I did this better, and I was probably the same. But yeah, I mean, that's
You weren't popping off when you solo killed Faker. You weren't like, yeah, that's right, I can kill anyone. Fuck this bitch.
I mean, it already happened in scrims before.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
just old news for you, I guess, right?
You know what happened, right? Like we were, there was like this backstage, and it was like really scuffed, and everyone had like their little tent, basically.
Right.
And we were scrimming SKT for the first time, and Deilor was standing behind me, and then I killed him, and then I looked, I just turned my chair around, and then I just gave him like a fist bump. And I was so happy I couldn't focus anymore. And then that was like in scrims, so it was leading up to the real game.
Right, in the next split, when you did the perfect 18 and 0, which to me is still one of the most impressive feats anyone's ever done. I know it was best of ones, but even so, like, to just not drop a best of one is fucking really hard. There's a reason why not many teams in any region go and defeat it. Right, one of the interesting things is this is obviously what got a lot of the attention to Deilor as the coach. And I remember you made some comment at the time, which I feel like probably has warped people's memory of this period, where you said some sort of ominous comment like I have to like ask permission to even have like Red Bull or something when I'm like playing the fucking game and that. So it made it sound like Deilor was super harsh, or he was like controlling every aspect. What was it like to have Deilor as a coach? Like, was he bringing something fresh from outside? Was he really strict? What was he like?
Yeah, at the time, I think he was really strict. I remember, obviously sodas were perma-banned, right, from the house, from the office, so you're not allowed to have any sugar drinks or have any candy, or basically, yeah, just like fucking just grab a Coke and get a pizza and just eat it in front of your PC, right?
Yeah,
so I remember going outside after scrims with Steelback because he was also a smoker at the time. and we would always just go to the shop after scrims, buy 1 liter of Coke, and just like drink it before we get up. We just hide it in our jackets.
Okay.
And I think he brought really good structure. He was very like, I don't know. I was like inting solo queue games, and he was like calling me to his PC and like asking me, why the fuck are you inting in solo queue games like multiple times? And it was like, I got really frustrated in a scrim once, and I was like, I don't remember if I was like being passive aggressive. I think I was being passive aggressive to Spirit, and then he like always would call me to the kitchen because there would be the one-on-ones. And then I knew if I would have to go to the kitchen, I would get fucked. Like I would get like, he would like play me or like question me, you know what I mean? And then obviously I got like defensive, right? But yeah, it was like really working hard, like really sleeping like very little, and like putting all his effort into it, and it was very hard to deal with at the time. I think it would have been way harder if we actually lost a lot more, but we actually won everything, and he was like, I still think he was annoying, and I think all my teammates thought the same because we were always talking about it. Like it was the same with Rekkles. Like me and him were like very annoyed by how we had to behave because he was always questioning us why we were winning everything, and we were just like, why is he asking so much stuff? Why is he trying, like, why is he being annoying when we're winning everything? And like, why can't we just fucking have fun and joke and, you know? But yeah, that kind of showed like the difference in age, and like he was like already older, and we were just young kids just trying to have fun.
Did stuff like that, like obviously to an outsider, that's going to sound extreme because this was actually the era when, yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, the previous FNATIC players used to literally just be partying like before they fucking played games the next day and stuff. So they were like pretty out of control. Like, do you think doing stuff like banning swords and stuff and being a little bit like, was there like a logic behind what he was doing? Like, do you look back now and does it make more sense?
Yeah, I think it does make sense. I think he's someone that's very extreme, and I am a person that I like balance. Obviously, drinking fucking Red Bull every day is like gonna hurt you more than good, right? But I think with the personality that he is, I think it made it very hard for us because it was like coming from home, drinking fucking 5 iced teas every day, some cokes here and there, some candy, going to a gaming house, and then like suddenly it's like banned, and then you have to like sneak it in your fucking jacket. That's obviously it will be like a shock to you, right? Because you're like, at least I was this like very entitled, like spoiled. I can do whatever the fuck I want, you know. And then I mean, yeah, it's hard to deal with for not just me, also my teammate.
When you went to Worlds that year, people will forget it now, but that was actually one of the first Western teams that people really did say, like, maybe this team can win Worlds. Like, maybe it's possible. And obviously, you guys did go all the way to the semis. Obviously, the team you played, Coup Tigers, later Rocks Tigers, was a very good team. They were good for many years. Like, did you also think the same? Did you think it was possible maybe to win Worlds that year?
I think it was possible. Yeah, I think it very unlikely that we would have won against SKT. Because they were really fucking insane. Like towards the end of the tournament, and we were scrimming them, and our win rate just kept getting lower and lower and lower. I just think they had like a mental advantage at that point, because they already been to Worlds before that, right?
Sure.
And they, I guess, kind of knew better how to handle it. Also, like Korean, some players are just machines. That they don't get emotional. They are just, I don't know. It's like if they lose 20 fucking solo queue games in a row, they're not gonna, I don't know, get tilted. They're just gonna play. Or like if they lose 10 scrims in a row, they're still like really try hard, even if it's like the most important time of their, like during the tournament, right? There's a lot of pressure.
Sure.
And like, yeah, I don't think we would have won against them. I mean, obviously, if they would have choked, then we could have won, right? But if we were not able to beat Good Tigers, then there was no way. you probably saw like after the first game, everyone was like done already.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah. Right. What about this then? Since you were just talking there about the Korean players, you obviously got to play with a whole bunch of Korean players in your team. So actually, the first couple I want to ask about is from this year, which is Reignover and Huni. Right. Obviously, like you say, that's also something else I heard, which is I heard that it was sort of like part of the reason why Huni was able to, as a rookie, be one of the best players is because basically him and Reignover just worked together and just talked in Korean, and then they just sort of did their own shit. And I assume Deilor just sort of interfaced with them before the game. Like, what was it actually like to play with them? Like, did you have any clue what Huni was trying to do, or like how those two were going to play?
I mean, Huni this guy is like, he just came in and he's like very creative, very like, so much energy, spends all his hours into the game and was already so ahead of all the other top laners. So that's why we got a lot of wins. The same for Reignover, like they just had this play style that was just like they were just ahead in terms of the game. Like they just knew everything a step faster, and like they were able to communicate that they were able to like execute level 2 ganks, level 3 ganks, just very efficient, like strong mental. Like even if Huni would die 5 times, he would still like carry a game, and like they would never they would never give up the game. They would always try, and I think that mentality was like very rare at the time, and for us having 2 players like that. With like a carry top laner that was just like teleporting across the whole map with Hecarim and shit. It's just makes it so much easier to play, and I think we just had a lot of stability on the rest of the map that kind of helped them carry, I guess.
Right. The other one is the guy you already mentioned, which is the next year was the one that I think every fan for some reason has deleted from their mind because it just wasn't the best time for Fnatic, which is when Spirit joined the team. Now, even though, yeah, you had Gamsu and he had his issues and this team was obviously a little bit flawed, like it didn't do much in terms of results. Like when Spirit joined that team, he was actually supposed to be a really good jungler. Like I remember watching him in the LPL and he was like fucking like 1v9 in games, but he was super good. Like what was it actually like to play with him? Did he have his issues? Because he certainly had like a very weird playing style, I remember in Fnatic. Like I think this was the period when he would just like farm the whole game or some shit and like never interact with the lanes.
I mean, very interesting personality. Obviously, a really hard carry jungler player that would take all the resources basically and kind of force the team. I mean, actually, he was playing for the team as well sometimes, but I think naturally he was like Nidalee player.
Yes.
It's like wants to. I mean, he was the best fucking Nidalee in the server, that's for sure. When he came to EU. Also playing Graves and like he wanted to carry because felt like I guess the team was not good enough at some point, so like he didn't trust the team, and we were just like there just wasn't the right balance. But I liked working with him. I think he was fun. Like it was fun. Like we had really good moments, some bad moments. Yeah.
What about obviously when in the summer of 2015, then for all of 2016, Rekkles was back in Fnatic. He finished that period that we're now supposed to pretend didn't exist, where he went to Elements for that split, and who knows what happened there. Then he came back. Right, what was it like to play with Rekkles? Because here's the thing, I've heard a lot of different stories from different teammates. Some teammates love him and love like he was really dedicated to the game, and some of them think he was a diva, and he maybe asked for too many things or demanded things his way a bit. So like, what was the experience like for Febiven playing with Rekkles?
I mean, I guess it was mixed. I mean, I think I developed a French like more than just like a player relationship with him. I actually created like a friendship with him, and we were like personality-wise getting along, and just like we really always respected each other, I guess. So that always helped. I think, of course, everyone has their issues, right? I think we both had similar issues where we would like be overwhelmed by our like emotions, at least like mostly negative ones.
Sure.
And we would obviously like think that we're the shit, right? And like I think in the beginning he was trying to like follow a lot and just let us carry and kind of, but it wasn't really what he wanted. Like, so we had a lot of issues with that going into Worlds, for example. We had very limited champion pool, and we were not able to like work on the problems because me and him were kind of like I think he was more like intimidated by solving issues and like talking about stuff than me. Like I would always like just spurg out some my feelings, right? Because that's just how I am. But he would like hold them inside. And obviously a lot of great moments. We had, I don't know, we did some crazy stuff. Obviously we had some nice parties, had some good time, like just more than just playing together on League.
Okay. Well, then the obvious question is this, Febiven. Why did you leave Fnatic? Did they kick you? Did they not want you anymore? Did you choose to leave? What goes on there, mate? Why? Like in this team here, if I look at the lineup there, I understand maybe the Koreans couldn't stay. They had their issues. Obviously, at this point in time, like YellOwStaR's pretty old in his career. He probably wasn't going to play much longer. But like, why not just build around Febiven and Rekkles? It seems obvious to me.
I mean, obviously at the time, I think we had Nico de Pico.
Yes.
And this guy was like he was scouting caps for a really long time, and at that time H2k went to World, right?
Yes.
With
The year
Ryu,
before they were at Worlds. Yep. Yep.
and that team was fucking insane.
Sure.
And I always thought that Ryu was kind of like their weakest link, and I always thought that if I would play instead of this guy, this team would actually be really fucking insane. And at the time they were really like horny for caps, and they were like really pushing for him. And I was like, if this team doesn't really want me anymore, and other team like H2k really wants me and they're like really interested, and I feel like that's a better team as well, then why would I not go there? Like it doesn't matter at that point if I'm playing for Fnatic or if I'm playing for H2k, if I feel like the roster is better. And that's how I've always
sure.
like decided where I go. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like what I thought.
Yeah, the only tough thing is though, like obviously you didn't have the Febiven Vander bot lane when you went there. You got this weird Korean bot lane, who, by the way, one of them, Nuclear, actually wasn't like damn one gamer for the last few years. People don't know. He actually wasn't like a terrible player. The problem is, I think the support that Che guy was fucking garbage. But that's just Thorin's opinion. That doesn't have to be anything else, that can just be out there. But what I'm going to say is this, right? Listen, the bot lane had its issues, and I heard that, like, Prolly, I think he even admitted it in an interview with me, he basically asked for Koreans because he thought, like, that they would do everything he said and something would be like a coach's dream. So forget the bot lane for a moment. The top side of the map, though, mate, was fucking banging because it was your old mate, Odo Amner, who used to play with Challenger, and this is when he was at his peak, in my opinion. And then Jankos, like, even though back then some people used to say, oh, he's a choker because he only makes the semis, like, this guy has always been a fucking monster jungler. So, like, some of the players in the team were pretty good when you were in the squad. So what did you think of this H2k experience the second time around?
Yeah, this is where things started. I mean, I obviously loved playing with the whole team. I think that team was really great, from cook to management to players to coach. Everything was really nice. I really liked playing in that team. But in the end, we just lacked like a lot of stuff. Like we played against Fnatic, I think, in the in the playoffs, I think, and then we got fucked. But it came down to small things. Like I think this team actually, if we did some things differently, could have been like really big. Like it was like really small. Like at least we had the potential. I felt like, and then it just comes down to like a best of 5, right?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, me and Jankos were insane. Like that guy was just enabling me so well, and I was enabling him, and we were like, yeah, our top side was like smurfing, and I think our bot lane was also stable in a sense, and they were just doing their thing, right?
Did you have like a good actual personal relationship with Jankos? Like, did you kind of understand how to play with each other and how to communicate and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of fun together. I mean, that guy is just so funny. Very, very, I respect him a lot. He's like very hardworking. super funny as well, super like so much energy, and yeah, just very nice, good guy.
Since the coach of this team was Prolly, and he probably isn't thought of as fondly as maybe I do, because, you know, his 100 Thieves period wasn't that great, and then now he's just sort of disappeared behind the scenes. What was he like as a coach? Because I know as a coach, for example, he was someone who put a lot of emphasis, funnily enough, on things that actually is what EU League of Legends is kind of about, like side laning, like macro concepts, you know. Like, what was it actually like to work under him?
I think his biggest strength was, or I guess is, like his game understanding, as you said. Drafts as well. I think he knew the meta really well and kind of like was able to scout very well like what team comps were working. He was very good at asking information from the players. He was most of the time really like understanding. I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously it was nice to work with him. I think he had his strengths, obviously also weaknesses, just like everyone.
I mean, I heard, for example, like as a weakness, like maybe he wasn't so good at like, you know, managing egos, or like sometimes maybe he was one of those coaches who had like the right idea on paper, but maybe like the team wouldn't be able to do that in the actual game. Is there anything to those?
I mean, one thing that stands out, and this is with a lot of coaches that I had. For example, after a LEC game, right? You come home, and then the coaches want to talk to you, but then
Yeah.
always the coaches get very emotional, which I understand. But if the coach is gonna get emotional, then the players are gonna get emotional too, depending on how they are. But usually, when you're young, 18, between 18 and 20, 22, 23, like everyone's gonna get triggered. So I think this is something that I mean, it didn't happen a lot, but I could see that him getting frustrated didn't really help the situation. And I guess it's the same for like the players, right? Like if the player gets frustrated, it's also easier for the coach to get frustrated. So it was just like permanently ping ponging, like not really being understood, like just like not understanding each other, like emotion on an emotional level.
Right, even though you said earlier, and if I look at most of your career, I could believe that is the logic, because basically it's the logic that a lot of the top pros in Europe have. It's that, except for unless you can get paid megabucks by one of the big orgs, people basically just in the off-season pick what they think is the best looking set of players to play with, because people want to win, people want to be in the best team, people want to go to Worlds. So I could believe that for H2k, I could believe it for some of the later teams you're in, but I'm going to tell you right now, mate, there's no universe where I believe that Febiven went to Clutch Gaming because he thought that lineup was fucking straight fire. Like, that just sounds like they offered you loads of money and you thought you would smurf on in it. Am I right?
Of course, you're 100% right, yeah.
Because, you know, obviously your fans flame you for that year, because even though the team did well the first split, after that you didn't go to Worlds, you didn't do that well. Right, I'll just say this. Go back now, anyone. You can all look it up on those Wikipedias. Go and look at what the lineup of this Clutch Gaming team was, and then look at the lining of the TSM team that they placed ahead of that split. Like, to me, that team overperformed, mate. Like, I think you were actually the best part of that team. Like, that. Like, listen, I'm not hating on those players. They just weren't top players, you know. Like, there was a couple of, like, I thought Lero was a decent player, but some of the others were just like average or below average LCS players. Am I being too harsh?
I mean, I guess you could say so. I didn't really ever think about it like that. But I was very confident that even coming in with players that I didn't know, that I would be able to carry this team. And I guess I kind of proved that to myself. But then I realized we were never gonna win against like TL at the time because they were like too good.
Sure.
And I don't think we had the skill ceiling. But when I looked at NA, I was always like, oh, this, like, I don't know, as an EU player, you always feel like if you're on top of your game, you always know and always feel that you're better than the individual players that are from NA. I guess that comes back to the confidence, right? But it is just, I mean, for me, it's just a fact. And this is also why people are importing a lot of players, right?
Sure.
But I would say that I was during this H2k period. I think my focus started like drifting away in a sense. So I think this decision was definitely not based on like the best roster, and I absolutely don't regret any decisions I made. I'm really like in peace with what I did, and I think it was a really good time there. I was just struggling, I guess, just like everyone is fucking struggling, right? It's like go to America, you go to a team, you realize that you're never gonna be the best team. You're just like struggling individually, just like you want to go back home. You miss your European brothers, your family, your stuff. Like it just fucks with you emotionally, right? So
What about in terms of like the culture aspect? Like, was it the case like we've heard about some teams? Like I've heard basically that it's not the LCS players that are lazy. It's that some of them just don't have ambition. You know, like they're just fine being in the LCS, and you know they play enough for the scrims and they play enough to keep their skills good. But they're not like killing themselves to be the best player. They're not even anywhere close to what Koreans are like. You know, so like if you play with players like that, I've heard that's why some of the European players get like a bit depressed, basically, because it's like you sort of look at your teammates and you're like, well, if this is as good as they are now, like they don't even look like they even want to get that much better. Like they're just hoping they win the game, sort of. Like, was there any of that?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously like you're never gonna get. I mean, this is like the dream, right? You get like 5 players that are like extremely driven, that will just they have the skill ceiling of that is like endless. In the reality, you're never gonna get this. But the trick is to get as many of those, right?
Yes.
Obviously, every player is gonna be different, but I think that, as you said, yeah, some people very relaxed. Uh, I think most of my team actually was really trying hard, but I think they just didn't know what was possible, and they were very narrow-minded in the sense where they would, for example, I don't understand why some players they just don't study Asian teams. Like for me, it's been so obvious since like I started playing that
Like they were never watching LCK or whatever. They were
yeah,
just
they're like not
chilling.
watching the VODs or like watching the pro views or like curious about what they're building or something. But I just think if you don't like if you're not interested in that, then like just be like doing this can give you so much.
Yes. It's the
Just
extra
like
gear, right? You can go to the next level.
yeah, it's not like it's gonna change everything, but it's gonna give you like a new perspective or like, for example, right now when I look at like the Asians play, right? Still, like if I look at Rookie, if I look at Faker, like these guys, like they're still Showmaker. These guys are still so much better mechanically than like every mid laner in the EU, and it's not like mechanically, it's like on another level basically. But then, for example, game understanding would be like on a similar thing, right? And then, for example, how a Showmaker will play a matchup, like there's no way that a fucking NA mid will play this matchup, like not anywhere close. And like you're not gonna learn playing the matchup like Showmaker if you're just gonna be playing against the another mid laner in NA. So like if you're not like willing to see beyond that, then I'm like, okay, then how are you gonna prepare for potentially going to Worlds and meeting these people? Because I've
Sure.
been through that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In 2015, and I got fucked, like I got smashed. But I think if you're not in this, if you haven't been in this position before, and even for myself being in this position, it's impossible to share to your teammates to believe that this is important because they don't feel that, like they don't feel like they need to know that, right? They just want to, they just need to experience it. Um, so yeah,
Sure.
just very, very, very a lot of steps behind, and I guess just that's just a part of it, right? Like everyone has their strengths, weaknesses. It's just need to find the right balance. And I mean, we didn't do too bad. We were never gonna be the best team, but it was fun. I loved the experience, honestly.
Did you have over the years, is there like a specific Korean player that you've taken a lot from, or you found like their game understanding very interesting? Like, for example, when I saw that recent thing where there was those threads where people translated what Doper said about like Faker and how SKT played, like to me it just uncovered like another level of like genius to some of the way that those guys are playing. Like in the game, if you look at it from a Western mentality, you're just going to think, oh, the jungler just knew to go bottom. But if you actually see like the movements they're making, like how they're like fucking like messing with people on the fog of war, like some of the things they're doing are next level. So is there a specific player or someone that you always gravitated towards, like this guy's really got a good feel for the game?
I mean, I think there's a lot of players, I think that I've studied many different players, and it always changed depending on like how I felt, how like what I could learn from them, and how good they were, and how I could use their play to my advantage, and how I guess I could elevate my game by watching them in terms of everything, like everything that could make me 1% better. And some names are like, I don't know, back in 2015 there was like like I think I was BDD was really impressed by. Then obviously Rookie was in IG at the time. There was this Wayless guy from LGD.
Yes.
Then obviously studying Faker for a long time. Who else? I mean, there's obviously recently Showmaker. Then there was Caps in EU, which was like the only mid laner that was like, okay, this guy is really insane, and I need to look out for this guy. And then there's like Knight coming up, you know.
Yes.
I mean, there's probably more that I just don't
Yeah, no doubt.
like. Chovy, stuff like this. Like, it's just so many insane players that just show me something different, and it just like really excites me to like watch their games and like see how they play lanes. Because for example, when there was the Worlds bootcamp in EU and I'm playing against these people, like it's just so obvious that they're gonna win. Like I knew, like actually I predicted it. Like when I was playing against Canyon and Showmaker duo queue in EU, I already knew these guys were gonna win Worlds. Like I already knew it because I've played against these people. And also when I saw Nuguri play, it was like dominating solo queue, like no one. And it was just so like a miracle would have to happen for these guys to not win this year. I mean, that's just the feeling I got, and it's like usually my my gut feeling is right, and I don't know, I'm still honestly surprised a bit because these guys were like so insane and like non-stop grinding, 70% win rate in Challenger duo queue. It's like no EU duo queue will ever do this and smash as much as they did. Meanwhile, these guys are like 18 years old.
So
And
even if like Perks and Yankos or Caps and someone, even if they queue up, they don't do this?
I mean, they could probably get the same win rate, but they're never gonna be like as good mechanically or like playing every matchup to like the limit and like being so quick and just like always showing you something new every time you play.
Right. Right, listen, obviously you don't have to say a number, but just to put in perspective, because the period of time when you went over the clutch was also when Europe was like vaguely starting to get so that the top teams could pay anywhere close to the LCS teams, right? How about this? How much was your salary in clutch compared to your salary before in H2k or FNATIC? Was it like 5 times more, 10 times more? Like what kind of crazy level are we talking about here?
Probably like, yeah, like 10 times more.
Fucking hell. All right, so that's why you don't regret it then. It was worth doing for a year.
No, but I don't, I don't regret it. Like, it's not because of the money. Like, obviously it's attractive and all, right? But I think, I mean, it was just the whole picture, right? Like the new experience. I was very excited to go there and smurf, right? Obviously money, I mean, it's attractive, but not the most attractive.
Sure. One other thing I've heard that I wanted to get your take on is, like a lot of EU pros, where you said there that you thought to yourself, like, right, well, if I'm really skilled in Europe and I look at LCS, like, obviously I'm going to go there, I'm going to be way better than these guys, I'm going to smurf, doesn't even matter if my team's good. A lot of EU players have gone there with that mentality, and even some of the greats who are like legends in Europe, some of them haven't done that well in NA. And so one thing I wanted to ask was, even though people make fun of NA for like the style, like NA RAM, and they're just fucking team fighting all the time, and every fucking game's about who's the Baron or whatever, like the most basic League of Legends, there must still be something that makes it tricky to play there, right? Because it's not like everyone goes there and just smurfs and it's like 10 times better than in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, just being one. If you put one good EU player in like a team with 4 American players, obviously, like you're like, I mean, you can only do so much, right? Like, I think if you're in high pressure situations and you believe that, for example, you need to call the Baron at like after killing one guy at minute 21, when it's like it's definitely the play, but you're like not able to, I guess, kind of call that because your teammates are naturally like more passive or like lean back, then it doesn't give you like the power to like call that, for example, right? And
Yes.
it's the same for in practice. Like if your teammates are not as driven to like, for example, you get stunned 5 games in a row, and then your teammates are like, they are not a part of like the solution. They are not really like hit emotionally by like, why are we losing? How is this possible? Like, it's like people just, they don't care. It's not like they don't care, but it's like they don't care like to the same degree, and this is just depends on like the personality, I guess. Because I think I've always been like the most emotional guy in my teams, so always like when shit goes wrong, I want to try to solve stuff. Maybe it's not always the right way, but I feel like League is like, you have a structure where you play scrims, and then after every game you're like trying to figure out what you should have done better, and then you just create this atmosphere. If people like don't, if you're like tryharding for your life to like say something and try to fix stuff, and other people seem like they don't bother, then that's obviously like can be seen as disrespecting as well. So it's just hard.
When you came back to Europe and you were part of this Season 9 Misfits team, which obviously now is notorious because at the time, the players looked like a really interesting bunch of players. Like maybe this is going to be one of the best teams, and then the team didn't even make the playoffs. Right? How do you think of this? Because like, did you come in with similar high hopes? Because like, listen, people can think whatever they want about Max Law and Hans Sama. They were still fairly new in their careers. But if you have players like sOAZ, Gorilla, like these are guys where in their regions they're like Hall of Fame players. Like, you know, they've done everything. So did you expect a lot from this team?
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone thought that everyone would be insane. But then we actually had the worst work ethic of any team that I was a part of. And also I think this year was personally my worst year. Also spoken to MaxStar a lot. He also told me that he also had his worst year. And we were just like, everyone was just struggling individually. And it just really like it, no one was able to like look out for one another. Or like, people were looking out for each other, but like it wasn't enough. People were not good enough and not trying hard enough to like make things work.
Is it unfair or fair to say that the coaching staff also had some serious problems in this team? Like I've heard from some people inside the team essentially that like some of the coaching staff maybe didn't understand how to handle different players or really have much of a clue what they were doing outside of the basics.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, when you have a group like this, right, basically 5 veterans, and then you put a coach in that's very inexperienced, I think it's kind of bound to fail, which is completely fine, right? Because like in the end, there's a lot to learn from, and not everything is gonna go fucking perfect
Sure.
and stuff like this. But probably wasn't the right match. So probably would have been better if like for example, Jessis would be like an assistant coach, and then we would have someone that was like more structured and like more like, for example, like older and like more understanding, because like Jessis at the time was still like, in my eyes, like just a pro player, just like me.
Yes.
You know, like very emotionally driven, like cares a lot, gets frustrated, just like all the players basically, right? So I think this group needed something like fucking miracle coach to make it work, and I think it was a very hard group, and I don't blame. I think it was really fucking like, it was really impossible for Jessis at the time to understand how to make this team work, and I think then we swapped Hussein in again,
Yes.
but I think it was already too late. Like,
what about what is your actual general take on coaches, by the way? Because I saw recently that like Perks went on some Croatian podcast where he sort of just implied that like he doesn't think coaches do that much and they're a bit overrated. Like, which by the way makes perfect sense, because if you look at his career, a lot of people always speculated like Mithy or him were kind of semi-coaching their teams because they were such veteran players. I know I've heard similar things from some of the Koreans. Some of them think like here's the thing. Basically, some players think coaches are more like they're like an assistant to the team. Like they can maybe help you collect ideas, or they could be an independent voice. But it's not like the vision that some fans have, where they think like the coach. It's not like football where the coach decides the tactics, everything you're going to do. I'm going to play you. You're going to practice. Like it's not like that, is it? Right. So what's your take on coaching in general?
really good question, actually. I mean, I've thought about this a lot, actually. I mean, the way I see coaches is, I mean, I've over the years I've studied a lot of coaches, like the ones I've worked with, and also the ones that, for example, the basketball coaches, and like, I've read upon like a lot of like successful coaches in like the bigger industries, right? But I think in this esports industry, um, I would kind of see it. I mean, maybe saying it's a joke is kind of the wrong word, but like everything is very inexperienced, and I don't think anyone really knows exactly. Like everyone is still in like the figuring out phase, kind of.
Sure.
Because if you're a coach and you get into a team with 5 rookies, you have no idea how these people are. You have no idea what they need. And the way I see like the most optimal way for like a League of Legends coach to work is my ideal coach would be someone that is like a role model for me. So he has like he knows his values, like he knows he has to be an example. He knows that he has to be in charge of the group. He has to be respected. He has to understand every player differently.
Has to be a leader by the sounds of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he has to be a leader. He has to be someone that you can count on. He has to be someone that comes in with a lot of energy. He has to be someone that's like pushing, but also like kind of having fun with the people. I mean, this is just like kind of my ideal like personality coach, right? And this would work the best for me, which would obviously not work for everyone. So this is why it's so tricky, and this is why I think every coach should treat every player differently. And I think this is a very common mistake a lot of coaches do. They always try to treat everyone the same, when this maybe works, but I don't think it's like the most optimal way, in my opinion, at least from my experience. But yeah, I think in terms of like teaching the game and stuff, I mean, I know there's players that need to be taught how to play the game, right? Like in terms of how to rotate.
Yes.
But
Simple
if
things,
you're
yeah.
like, there's also players that, like for example, me, you don't need to teach me like how to play the game. For me, it's like, I think I'm someone that you have to like question a lot, right? Like I think telling a pro just what to do like in a certain position, like when you're playing laning phase, for example, or playing a team fight, this is not like what you're like. Some people need that, but some people also like really cannot hear that, because it's like you're the pro. I don't know if it's an ego thing. I just think it's just very sensitive topic, I guess. Like as I said, everyone needs something different, and I think coaches should try to be really understanding because they're working with so many young guys, and the young guys don't even know what they want. They don't know what to expect. They're probably like, this guy is supposed to be the best coach. He's my coach. He's supposed to teach me everything. He's not supposed to annoy me. Then the other guy's like, oh, the guy's supposed to push me. He's supposed to be a role model. He's supposed to let me do whatever I want to
Sure.
do. You know what I mean? It's like everything is just so inexperienced, and I think that's also really fun. And that's why also for me, I would really be interested in coaching. I would say like over the years I've been a player and a coach as well. And like I was kind of doing both, obviously not like on a structure level, but like just like getting to know my teammates, understanding them, like helping them, like pushing them, being a good example and stuff. So yeah.
Right, obviously, when you were in this team with sOAZ, wasn't a great moment in his career. Like, this was one of the years that wasn't very good for him. But do you have any thoughts you can give us? Like, what was it like to play with sOAZ as a teammate? Is it someone you'd wanted to play with before?
I mean, I think it was. I mean, of course, like he was playing FNATIC, right? He was like really. I think he was. This guy is like really creative and like has some really high highs, also very low lows. I think me and him got along pretty well, like on the personal level, but I think we were both struggling to like understand each other, and yeah, I mean, it was just like really hard because everyone was struggling. So it's like you always want to pinpoint one guy, but I think everyone was just like having their issues, and I love the guy. It's just we're just not able to fix our issues, and like we kind of make up for each other and make sacrifices and like really do what it takes to win in the end, right? It's just like putting all your effort into your teammates and like understanding them, and we just didn't have that capability kind of because we were so like busy with ourselves and we thought we were the fucking shit.
Right, obviously, the role people most associate with mid lane is jungle for obvious reasons, and in the modern day, maybe support because of the roaming. But are you one of these people who thinks that, like, you know, the term solo laners for top and mid? Should the solo laners have some sort of a connection or an understanding of how each is going to play, so they know who to play aggressively, who not to? When is this a real thing? Do you think?
Yeah, I think this is. I think it goes for every role, but yeah, I think obviously mid top jungle have like the most interaction, right, in early game, depending on how you play. So obviously in early game it's gonna be very huge. If you're gonna play like Twisted Fate and you're gonna play like Renekton or like a carry top, then you need to know how to play around this role. Else it's just like you're just gonna be lost, right? At some point. It's the same for AD carry and support. Like you need to know when your support wants to engage, when he wants to fight. You need to know what your AD carry needs when he's flashless and he's playing against a Wukong or something. Like, but yeah, I mean it just depends on the style the guy wants to play, and it's up to you to be able to play around that, or yeah.
Right, over the years, one thing that's a really weird fucking side angle that people got on your career is because after the period when you were with FNATIC, you did like some stream where you like fucking talked to Athene or whatever, that guy, and you were, at the time, people saw you reading like self-improvement books. Like people took that angle and went really weird with it. Like they tried to make it sound like you were good, like you were just fucking sat like with all crystals around you, like universal consciousness. Like obviously you weren't doing any of that, right? But you were interested in things like science of the mind, different like psychology concepts, like meditation and stuff. Like, well, can you speak a little bit on that? Have you found it useful in your pro career?
I mean, I would say I'm still really into it. I think that's something that I realized after 2016, when we didn't make Worlds. It was like very hard for me to swallow that. So I was like, okay, something has to really change. And I was like, spending a lot of time with a friend, and he introduced me to a book because he was like really into this stuff, and I was like, holy fuck, everything makes sense. It's like reading this book, I was like, wow, these are not the books I was reading in school. It was like,
Sure.
it's like the books in school is like they kind of force you to read them, and they're all because you're being forced to read them. It already makes it unattractive.
Yes,
So
you
this
kind of
was
resist it, right?
yeah. It's like you're just a rat in a cage, and you just have to you just have to read what's in the book. But this book was like everything just resonated with me, and I was like so into it that I just started like being so interested in it and became so more open. And this is where a new world, I guess, opened for me, where I started um, studying a lot of athletes. Like I had a phase where I studied Kobe Bryant for I don't know, like half a year. Um, Sadly, passed away. Studied many more athletes, basketball players like LeBron James, stuff like this. It's just very interesting, like to see the differences, like in a physical sport compared to like a more mental sport and how they prepare mentally. And it's just, I think that's something that I really was interested to and I needed. And obviously, I mean, talking about meditation, I mean, I'm currently, I think throughout this year, I've done a lot of meditation and it's like become really a part of me in a sense. Like, just, I mean, right now when I wake up in the morning, I always do 25 minutes meditation, and then before I go to bed, I do 25 minutes again. Kind of to like start my day and end my day. And in those moments, for example, I am able to like become in peace with, I guess, my past and like kind of having no regrets and like accepting where I am right now. It's like a really great spot, regardless of that I'm not playing LEC. Like for me, it doesn't matter that I'm not playing LEC. Obviously, I want to compete at the highest level. But if I'm still competing. I'm gonna compete at my highest level with my team uh, in ERL. And if people think that I'm supposed to be in LEC, then I'm supposed to be in LEC. So it's like I'm just able to like activate my subconscious mind and just like be just really understand myself and know what I want to feel and like what I need. And I don't know, it's like I'm such a different person from what I was like 5 years ago, and it's just crazy to kind of I don't know, my brain is just like so different nowadays, and I think that's something that I really needed to like open my horizon, just learn, understand myself. And I'm really interested in psychology and performance and anything that can make me play better or feel better, uh, have more energy. It's anything to optimize my performance.
Right. Since you won the championship so early in your career, like presumably it's frustrating not to have won again, not to have been in that many finals and stuff like that. How do you rationalize that? How do you cope with it?
I mean, this was very hard to cope with in the beginning, obviously, right? Because you win everything, then you go to Worlds, and then the next year you don't win anything. So you're like, what went wrong? But right now, I don't think winning a LEC thing is like that meaningful if I look at it in like a bigger picture. Because it's like, okay, right? You're like playing this final, and if you win it, you're like LEC champion, and like you get hype and all this stuff, which I've been through. But for me, like the more interesting thing is like my day-to-day life and like how, for example, I approach practice, how much I get out of my teammates, how happy I am generally in life, and like how much I'm getting out of my people around me, how much am I getting out of myself? Am I having a lot of energy? Am I learning new stuff? Am I getting new friends? Like just like everything else became more interesting than just this title. And like obviously I still want to like win everything, right? But like the end goal, there's no end goal, if it makes sense. It's like even if I would win worlds, I wouldn't quit like I wouldn't quit the game. I would still keep playing because I love the game. It's not like it just ends there. It's like my career is not defined on one moment, and I think that's like kind of the beauty of it, and like kind of why I'm so in peace, and like why I'm able to like willing to grind out my way like back up, because I am not like I have no regrets. Like I'm just in peace. I'm just really excited, and I know what I have in me, and I know what I can bring, and yeah, I mean, I'm just very lucky, I guess, in the sense that I'm still able to, I mean, to play this game like on a professional level for so long and doing what I love, and like, yeah, that pretty much sums up, I guess.
Right, when you described earlier, like going through a phase of like reading books about professional sports coaches, about professional athletes and people in different fields, that's something I've found very interesting myself, because what I see it as is like, I'm not trying to copy that person. Like, for example, obviously I'm not like an athlete. I wouldn't have the body to play basketball like they would, or I wouldn't have the skills that they would. But what I see it as is I'm trying to figure out what the process that person had was. How did they improve? How did they see the game? What experiences did they have that changed them and made them, greater? And basically, if I had to sum it up, I'm trying to find out, because these are basically the best people in their fields. I'm trying to find out what made them a master at their field. And then I'm just trying to see, can I steal something that applies to me? Even if what I'm doing, so like I'm making YouTube videos or I'm talking shit on a talk show, like, but I'm trying to do so. It sounds like you're on a similar path, right? You're essentially, even though it's impossible, the quest is to be a master of League of Legends, right?
I mean, like the point is not to, exactly as you said, it's not to copy like this guy or to be like this guy. I know a lot of people are like, I want to be like this guy. I want to be like LeBron James. I want to be like Caps. I want to be like Faker. But as I said before, that I would watch a lot of people like Korean players, right? I would take this 1% from their gameplay, just like I would, for example, read about Kobe, and then how this guy would like take care of his body, for example, and how he would spend so much time and just like non-stop grind, and just like those small things that I experimented with that may have been useful for me, or but also like made me understand more about myself, and just those small little things, just like in the end add up, right? It's just the right balance, I guess. And I think I've been always someone that very interested, and I mean, I guess like very open to learn the last years, and I found it very helpful to just get other perspectives, and just just try to learn from everybody, because everyone has something different, right?
One area that I actually noticed that, like, kind of how open you are to like different concepts and not like stuck in the idea that like this is always the best thing, or this next thing's like it goes 1, 2, 3 like this. Was I remember when you came on, I think it was when you did that Elitists United show with me, the LEC one I used to do, and on this show it was where you were in Misfits. I think it was spring of this year. It was where you were having like some individual success on Misfits, and you were basically saying something along the lines of, like, at the time, you agreed that in general, in theory, in the meta at the time, like LeBlanc wasn't supposed to be a good champion. Like, you're not really supposed to be able to win a bunch of matchups. You're supposed to be able to shut it down quite easily. But you basically explained it like, but that doesn't matter, because when I play it in LEC, like, the people just do things wrong. So it works. So you almost had like a very pragmatic mindset where even if you agree, like, the perfect game of League of Legends would it be to play LeBlanc in that scenario, you're going to do it because it works against these opponents. Like, is some of this kind of your psychology of how you compete?
Oh my god, it sounds like you're reading my mind, actually. No, but this exactly comes back to this actually comes back to studying players, because if you are playing LEC for 3-4 years, at some point you're gonna know how Nuke Duck plays, you're gonna know how Caps plays, you're gonna know how Nemesis plays. You're gonna know by just studying these guys, studying all those other people. The moment, for example, a Vetio comes into LEC, playing one game against this guy, you already know how this guy plays. I already have a sense how this guy is. Like, I already know how aggressive he is, how passive he is. I already know which lanes I can play against him and which I can. I know I can, for example, be more greedy, or for example, against caps I cannot play something that I can play against Nemesis, right? So it's like, I just think, I mean, yeah, I just use that to my advantage, and I think if you reflect a lot on those things, and I'm actually able to actually visualize it, and like still to this day, after all my solo queue games in the night, I close my eyes and I just I just replay like the whole thing in my mind and just try to see things that I like could do differently, because for me, looking at the replay actively won't actually make me learn more than just going into my subconscious and like replaying the whole thing. Because I mean, I guess that's just what has been working for me, right? But I think this is very, I don't know many players that actually do the same thing. But that doesn't matter, because honestly, like I've been still like very skeptical about streaming, because whenever I stream, I feel like there's other people that can watch me, and I know that if I look at someone else, that I can take so much stuff away from them. So I'm scared that other people take stuff away from me.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And there's some people that are not completely like not aware of this completely, and this will hurt them, but they don't know. But then also they're helping in a sense where they're able to like make these people better by watching their stream.
Sure.
But then maybe in the competition it would backfire, because they would be taken advantage of, right? But then also
Yes.
they wouldn't be able to entertain these 300 people that are watching their stream. So it's like, what do you value, right?
Yes. Well, one thing I can definitely relate to that you're saying there, because I know people might get confused by that premise of like visualizing it instead of watching the VOD. In my opinion, this is just purely my opinion, I actually think that is the most overrated part of League of Legends as a pro, is when people take the VOD of the game they lost in and the coach sits there and goes, pause at this minute, look, you should have done this and this and this. Because in that moment, right, you are just consciously thinking about the thing that you would do differently. And in that game that you play next week, your brain will never go back to that exact moment. It will never think consciously at that, because to me, this is again purely my own speculation, like my theory on the game. I think the way you play a game at its highest level is all off intuition, subconscious, like you're saying there. So what the training period is for is training my intuition, my subconscious, for what feels like the right move in the game. And I don't stop. Like I'm not doing like one of those movie scenes like, shit. You're probably wondering how I got here. Well, now I'm about to, like, you're not doing that. It's not like bullet time in the Matrix. Like, what you're doing is when you're at a high level and you've thought a lot about the game and you've reflected back on it, as you said, you've run it through your mind. Like, the idea is it just feels right. You just know what to do next. Like, I think this is what I see when I see Caps play. There's no way he's calculating these moves. No one can. Not. But when he pulls it off, I bet he just knew. I bet there was just something told him. This is the move. This is the feeling. This is what I should do.
It's just completely natural for the guy. Like, the guy is a super talent. It's like, yeah.
What do you think about this as a general approach, though? Because it's obviously different to what, like I said, most pros like aren't doing that. Like, they're doing like the basic VOD review approach and hoping they remember everything next time in a massive list.
I mean, let's start, right? Okay, so you have your normal scrim day starts at, let's say, 1 p.m., right? You are supposed to play 5 games. You have 1 game. Let's say this game just becomes the most intense game of your life, right? You play like 50 minutes. It's like one guy's backdooring your Nexus, and then you end up winning the game, and you're like really fucking excited and stuff. And then after the game, okay, guys, we're gonna do review. And then 30 minutes, you're talking about the game when people are like excited, and like some people are tilted because they entered the game. And then after this, you're supposed to go instantly into the next game. Let's say the game ends in 50 minutes, everyone is tilted, and then again you have to talk about this game when usually coaches are gonna criticize you, or players are gonna criticize other people. How the fuck are you able to stay mentally like focused when most players don't even take care of themselves mentally? So whenever you say something to them or you criticize them, they instantly get defensive and they don't know like how to behave. And obviously, like, I understand this because I've been through this and I'm still learning. but I also know that there's so many players that are struggling with this, and I just think the structure makes no sense. That I like to compare it to when I'm playing a real best of 5. I'm not gonna have my coach or a player be like, "Oh, you should be doing this and this after game 1," or like, "Why are you doing this?" Questioning me, like, you know what I mean? It's like I rather just play 5 games, and then after the 5 games, you take a break, you eat some food, you relax, and then you go back and then you analyze, or you just do it by yourself. You just obviously, I think you should like talk with your team, right? But like individually, like I find that meditating is like really, really, really good because you can just go over your individual stuff, right? But like just going over the replay after like an intense moment, I mean, I don't remember much times where it actually stuck by me.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense. Right. Obviously, at the time we're doing this interview, this is now the off season where people have found out technically Febiven isn't an LEC mid laner anymore. Like, you didn't stay with Misfits. You're going to be in FNATIC, but you've initially been announced as the Academy mid laner. Right. Do you have anything you want to say about the way that the last few months have gone, or what the future is for Febiven? What would you say to fans of Febiven?
I mean, obviously, like this time was very hard for me. Obviously, because like I mean, hard for everyone, right? Like with the COVID thing, and personally, kind of accepting that I won't be playing LEC. It's very difficult. It's very difficult pill to swallow. But on the whole FNATIC thing, I know I have a lot of FNATIC fans, and a lot of people are like saying blah blah blah, you will replace Niski, and in the week 3, blah, week 6, give it a month, or like stuff like this. Like I don't like reading this stuff. I think I really want like Niski to do well. I think he deserves this spot, and I will do everything in my power to help him. And we're like gonna be working together, and just like making sure that I'm gonna be making sure that he's gonna be playing very well, and just gonna give him everything that I need him to perform to his highest level. And I want him to shine. Like I want this guy to be playing if he's playing good, and he's for example playing better than me, right? Like I think if I would be playing 10 times better, then obviously I think I should be playing, right? In the main team. However, obviously I have my own team. I have my academy team. I'm going to be focused on this guys. I'm going to try to help the main team as much as possible, just like they will help us. And in the end, I think the team that makes most sense should play at the highest level, and I would really not mind. I'm really excited to see this team play really well, and I think they can. And it's just I'm looking forward to seeing them shine. And even if they're struggling, I'm there to help. I'm a part of the team, right? And I think that's how I'm going into it.
Right, at the end of the interview, do you have any final words? Anything about your career we haven't talked about?
I guess. I mean, there's a lot of things we haven't talked about, but
sure.
I think this was very, very interesting. And yeah, I mean, I think we covered most stuff.
All right, thank you, Vel.
Thank you.
This video was kindly supported by Lager15, Pronogo, Mohammed Al Abdul Razak, Dean Tanglis, Animosity, Eric Hillestad, Andreas Crockneys, Hades, Jensen Gore, Zumba, J Dobbs, Tobias Bernasconi, Alexander Rao, and as always, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion. Would you like to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Do you want to ask me a question in one of those monthly AMAs I do? Would you like teasers for who's going to appear next on my content? Or would you even like to take part in one of those crazy donator discussions I do where we go all over the place? Well, if so, put your money where your mouth is and join the Scrolluminati today at the Patreon link in the description box below.